the acquisition of content today isn't going to last you in infinity. But for revenue terms, how big would you say this pie potentially is? How much bigger could it sustainably become, and in what time frame?
Oh, it's such an interesting question because it's just such a big industry. And at Finder, we did a survey recently that showed there's about $115 million a month being put into the local economy just on subscription platforms. It's roughly about $60 on average per person. Amazon are looking at different things. This is just a small part of what they do. I mean, they want you to get everything through them, your groceries, your electronics. And if they can keep you, not cancelling your subscription by having some movie and TV for you to watch, that's all the better for them. So the potential in terms of revenue, it's exponential. For the first time, Netflix have actually started to slow down a little bit with their market share, and the Disney Plus and the Amazon Primes are starting to make up some ground. And obviously, the more content they've got, the more eyeballs they can get on their platform.
James, can I just quickly pick up on that point you made about Amazon? It seems like there could possibly be a move to a kind of hybrid model in the future where the content originators are not purely focused on content, but they might even be moving to the other sectors in the market where Amazon is already dominant in. Do you see this a possibility in the future?
I think so, and that's an advantage that Amazon has that all these other ones don't have, that are purely relying on streaming and streaming alone. Amazon's pushing close to a $2 trillion company, so as much as a $9 billion acquisition, will turn some heads. Overall, for the company, it's just a small slice of what they try to do. So they're trying to incorporate so many different areas of the market. So if there's a little bit dip in one area, they've got plenty of things to back them up. Whereas Netflix, Disney Plus, Google, Apple TV, they're really looking at streaming alone.
James, just finally, in terms of the future of streaming, assuming we recover sufficiently in time from COVID-19 and people are able to get back to work, there will be less time in the day for enjoying all that content. Is that factor, do you think, going to change the strategy for these streaming giants?
Yeah, I don't think it will change the strategy overall. We have seen that obviously these streaming platforms had an enormous spike when the pandemic hit. People were stuck at home a lot more. But overall, we're still seeing that concept, which is known in the industry as cutting the cord. So less cable TV, less traditional TV, and more streaming platforms. So while I think it will slow down a bit, while things are hopefully getting back to normal more, I still think these entertainment options will continue to grow more than the traditional TV or going out to the movies, that sort of thing.
James, before we finally let you go, who would you say is going to be more dominant than all the other giants in the next 5 years?
That's a really good question. As I said earlier, Netflix has a huge advantage on the competition, but these other ones are making up some ground. I quite like the approach that Disney Plus have done, just by trying to snap up so much different content. It's similar to what Amazon Prime have done today, but for them to get 20th Century Fox recently, to add to Pixar and Marvel and Star Wars and all these mega franchises, I think that's the way to go. So I think we'll see some levelling off, but I think those three are the main players.
Brilliant to get your insights today, James Dampney, editor of streaming at Finder.com. Wei Sue, back to you.
And thanks for that, Christine. Well, he upended everything the world knew about black holes and defied a doctor's predictions that he would die in 2 years after being diagnosed with ALS, living on for another 5 full and productive decades. Professor Stephen Hawking is one of the most celebrated scientists in modern times. And now some of his most prized papers and belongings will be going on display.
Being on a ventilator has not curbed my lifestyle.
His office will be reconstructed in the British Science Museum next year. Selected highlights, including this wheelchair, will go on display.
This is a 10 out of 10 acquisition. It really is up there with the sort of premier division of things that we've collected over the past 150 years. It's that important.
The University of Cambridge will be acquiring his scientific papers and journals, plus childhood letters and early, never-before-seen drafts. The University Library hopes to catalogue and digitize all 50 boxes of them and make them accessible to anyone in the world.
My father would be so pleased, and I think maybe at the same time just a tiny bit overwhelmed that he was going to form part of the story of history of science, that he was going to be alongside the great scientists, the people whose work he really admired.
From one genius to another, some masterpieces of renowned artist Vincent van Gogh have taken on a whole new dimension. State-of-the-art technology has made it possible for the Dutchman's works such as Iris and Starry Night of the Rhone to spring into life. Their paintings are projected onto big walls spanning close to 15,000 cubic meters. Soulful music in the background also building up an emotional journey for arts fans. Calling the immersive Van Gogh, the traveling exhibit has sold more than 1.5 million tickets and is currently in Manhattan, New York. As the Big Apple continues its battle against the pandemic, the co-producer believes Van Gogh was the perfect artist to guide visitors back into normalcy.
So I think it's a perfect timing for us going on the tail of pandemic to see and to encourage us all to live through that loneliness and to come out healthy.
As the highlight of every stargazer's calendar, a supermoon and total lunar eclipse combine to put on a big red show with a super blood moon. Some of us may have spotted it last night, but for those who slept through it, the solar systems aligned for this rare cosmic event. But unlike a solar eclipse, this one is safely visible to the naked eye. You can see the moon darkening and turning red. At this point, it can appear up to 30% brighter and 14% larger than at its farthest point. The two phenomena, that's a supermoon and a lunar eclipse, on their own, not that uncommon. A total lunar eclipse happens maybe twice a year, while a supermoon could occur up to 4 times every year. But at the same time, well, that is once in a decade. Only a partial eclipse could be seen in most of Asia, in places such as Hong Kong and Greater China. Our bad weather dampened most of the splendor, though. For one of the best views, you would have to be on the Pacific, or even better, be one of the lucky passengers aboard the Australian airliner Qantas, one-off super moon flight. Our Asia Now continues in the next hour. We'll be checking on the top stories, including are more Australian states closing borders to Victoria as that state prepares to enter lockdown again. And US President Biden gives intelligence agencies just 90 days to find out where COVID-19 started. But Chinese officials already hitting back with accusations of politicizing the origins of COVID-19.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
This Saturday, could rising inflation derail the post-pandemic economic recovery?
Those parts of the market that are more overvalued could easily get hit.
Relooking China's growth model as its population ages.
Chinese babies are not growing into industrial workers in the future.
Plus, how to be a part of the blockchain boom. Saturday on CNA.
This is Game Oji-san. I make YouTube videos. While he does bespoke carpentry, I get up close with a new generation of local craft people.
Whatever it took to become a woodworker, I think I did it.
Starting with a furniture artisan.
If you are a CEO, the desk represents you.
Will I keep on my fingers